thank you for joining us today. And let's get started. Tony, if you'd like to, thank you. So I'd like to introduce today's presenters. We are fortunate and lucky enough to be joined by two wonderful people, Ben Anderson and Tony Kirsch. Ben is product director for the Brand Safety Alliance. Ben is responsible for the direction and innovation roadmap of this organization, overseeing delivery of key solutions for the international brand community. And Tony, as commercial director for the Brand Safety Alliance, Tony is responsible for all strategic and business aspects of the organization, including business development, communications, and global partner relationships. And myself, Shane Layman, manager of global industry relations here at Markmonitor. Next slide, please. Awesome. So the agenda today, we will go over what is GlobalBlock, looking into the features and benefits of this new unified blocking service. We'll take a look at how the domain blocking landscape has expanded in recent years, some of the eligibility requirements for you as brand owners to secure your GlobalBlock, product terms, and a little overview of the beta launch period. All right, let's start with what is GlobalBlock. So GlobalBlock is domain blocking, essentially, which is a defensive tactic for online brand protection and domain portfolio management. It's a useful tool that all domain portfolio managers and brand managers should have in their tool belt. Requirements with GlobalBlock is not just limited to a signed mark data file as other block services, but it's an expansion into non-TMCH marks, unregistered trademarks, trade names, and celebrity names, which allows for more protection for your brands. You've got variant blocking as well, which provides additional security by blocking homoglyph and misspellings of your trademark name. Additionally, root labels found within the trademark can be blocked with the plus version, which Tony and Ben will go over here in a little bit. So if your brand name is 2 words, you can have my-brand and my brand blocked at the second level domain. And below we have an example of some of the homoglyph misspellings, how it would look for Markmonitor. Now let's look at how domain blocking has kind of expanded and grown over the years. Blocking kind of started early on from a need for expanded brand protection rather than registering your brand name in extensions that existed, with new GTLDs popping up and whatnot. So with the XXX Sunrise B in 2011, you can see as it's grown through the years. 2013, the DPML block came out with the expansion to right side as it went on, as Donuts acquired right side. The adult blocks with ICM registry, and now to where we are today with GlobalBlock. And with that, I will stop talking, turn it over to the experts. Tony, Ben, over to you guys.
Thanks, Shane. Welcome everybody, and thank you for the opportunity to talk to the Markmonitor community. I'm very excited to be here, and frankly, really excited to share with you all the genesis of well over 2 years of work now for the Brand Safety Alliance, and we'll go into that a little bit. But we're extremely excited about the opportunity that GlobalBlock creates. We've had an amazing team here helping us to build it, and most importantly, we've had engagement with a very significant percentage of the domain name community, in particular the registries, to bring you a service like this, which we think is going to be really beneficial for your organization. And it was born out of a desire for us to sit down and create some innovation that frankly was lacking across the domain name industry, in particular for providing additional services and valuable opportunities for efficiency for brand owners, something that we think had been sorely lacking. The genesis of that was initially around GlobalBlock. We thought we'd just share with you a little bit about the Brand Safety Alliance, which is a new initiative that we've created to effectively give this an identity and an organization to be the sponsor of it. Its role is to help to unite the community. We set out with a really very significant task here to break down the walls that exist within the domain name industry and the silos that we operate within. And that includes a number of things, not just geographic components, but also ability to work across some of our competitors and some of our friends, and then effectively to create something that we have understood for many years that brand owners have been asking for, which is an ability to protect your brand at scale. And that's ultimately what GlobalBlock is all about. And as we refer to it here, we think it's the world's unified domain name blocking service. It is the first of its kind. It has been an incredibly heavy lift, not that any of you need to be worrying about our personal problems, but to bring together a very large percentage of the community. Most of you will know that there is well over 1,000 domain extensions. That's a lot of phone calls, it's a lot of meetings, it's a lot of technical work to bring together a service. And we're going to show you a little bit about that today. And hopefully by the end of this year, as excited as we are to share with you the genesis of GlobalBlock. And I'll pass over to my esteemed colleague, Ben, to tell you a little bit more about the service.
Thanks, Tony, and welcome everyone. So as Tony said, this product's been in the making for nearly 24 months now. We've been looking at ways to improve the customer experience when blocking domains. Shane took you through the evolution of domain blocking services. We've seen some that have stayed and remained, others that have launched and then dropped. And so when we talk about the evolution, what we're talking about here is the fact that this service is unparalleled in its features, both for agents and for customers. And it's that breadth of service that GlobalBlock brings that we've brought together with our industry partners, where we deliver instant domain blocking that frankly hasn't been available before. And through a lot of industry engagement and outreach, we've been told that this is exactly what brands have been asking for, and I think we've delivered. So much like DPML, and based on the poll question earlier, I can see a lot of people have taken up blocking services before. So much like DPML and Adult Block, we're providing two flavors of GlobalBlock. There's the standard service and the plus service. So the GlobalBlock service will block a single rights label across all participating TLDs and extensions, but it doesn't stop there. There's some killer features that we've added to GlobalBlock, and we'll share those with you in a bit. But GlobalBlock Plus does everything the entry-level GlobalBlock product does, but we've widened the protection to include all the variations of a trademark, or what we call a main label. And based on those labels, we're going even further by creating variants using our typo error library. So where Shane showed earlier the replacing of an O with an umlauted O, those are what we call typographical errors. Or more simply, that's where we replace Latin characters with non-Latin script characters that look similar. And so I think, the question will be, what service is right for me? And it's quite simple, really. If a brand has a trademark with, say, spaces or special characters, such as an ampersand or apostrophe, then they should look at the plus service, because we'll cover all the variations of that. We convert the trademark into DNS permissible variations and block all of those. But this will also be relevant to any brand that wants protection in the IDN space. With our typo error library, we block every variant of those main labels without limitation. Tony, I think just over to you, maybe to give us a breakdown of those homoglyph confusables and what that could look like for a brand when checking to see whether or not the variants make sense for them.
Yeah, thanks, Ben. So folks, this is very much around protecting your brand from a visual perspective. We call these lookalike domains. Many of you will be familiar with these in the context of phishing attacks, where a lot of your customers are confused. And if you're looking at the example on the right-hand side of the screen here, you'll notice very quickly that some of the sample examples that we've shown you there actually look a lot like GlobalBlock. We're going to show you some examples of what it means here for GlobalBlock in a moment in terms of scale. But these are sort of the domains that, for at least a few of them, look really similar to what the word GlobalBlock would look like in Latin characters. And yet you can see very quickly that that could be used and registered in many, many domain extensions around the world, and clearly used to confuse your customer. So GlobalBlock as a standard service is fantastic. But I think that as a lot of the people listening to this session today dive into the conversation of GlobalBlock Plus, back to Ben was talking about earlier in his slides, we're aware that there's been multiple different blocking services that have existed. And initially, to be frank with you, when we were looking at doing an innovation like this, it didn't include going out and talking to the whole industry. It was really around a focused area. And that ultimately led us to this idea of brand owners don't really want just another blocking service. Effectively, you're going to have multiples of those. So the intention here of GlobalBlock is that it should be everything that you need in one service. And we'll go into that a little bit, especially for those of you that are DPML existing owners. On the GlobalBlock website, you can see the link below. We've created this idea of a brand protection calculator. Some of you will be familiar with this with the adult block service that we also operate. And here you can very simply just type in the name of your organization, select the basis of your trademark or your legal rights, and press calculate. And I thought I'd just show you some examples here using our organization or our product here with GlobalBlock and show you what that looks like in terms of scale. So currently in GlobalBlock right now, we have 510 extensions. We're going to have that up to 600 extensions for our launch in about 10 days or so. So we talked before about around 1,000 extensions or so on the internet that we'll be able to, that we've been in discussions with, and we're going to have at least 60% of those with us at launch. So we'll get a little bit deeper into that in a moment. So if I just type in GlobalBlock, you can very quickly see the depth of coverage that GlobalBlock Plus provides you. Almost 100,000 domain names are provided for a very modest increase in the price. So it is a premium service, but it's not a very expensive upgrade to move from GlobalBlock to GlobalBlock Plus. So the coverage becomes very, very significant in terms of the domains that we're removing from the internet that have the ability to impact your brand. And to be clear, if the domain is previously registered or unavailable in the registry because of language considerations, you may not get the full 97,000, but the scale of what we could be and we would try to block for you is very significant in that space. Now let's look what happens when I add a plus, the space to my trademark, if indeed I have one. As Ben mentioned, we do block all available main labels in GlobalBlock Plus. So with GlobalBlock Standard, you would be required to pick one of the two labels that you can see there where my arrow is placed. But with GlobalBlock Plus, you automatically receive both. And as you can see, it has a very significant impact in the level of coverage. It's almost doubled. In fact, it is doubled that you provide, that we would provide for you as GlobalBlock Plus. And again, if I took it further for those of you that have ands or, for example, ampersands in your trademark, again, the level of protection increases exponentially. All of this is provided at the standard price. We do not charge you more. So it is logical for those of you listening today that have shorter or single word brands, your coverage will not be in the hundreds of thousands, as you can see here. But for those of you that do have slightly more complicated marks or indeed product names and other parts of your business that you'd like to consider with GlobalBlock, we just wanted to give you an idea here of the scale of what GlobalBlock can offer you. And as Ben mentioned, from a features perspective, we've designed some really, really important pieces here that we think are going to create some enormous value for you as the customers here. Number one, in terms of the coverage that we're going to dive into, but also around some features that we've designed within GlobalBlock that give you some flexibility and effectively create what we think is a dynamic asset in your organization where domains are able to be added and removed from GlobalBlock. I'm going to ask Ben to show you a little bit more about those just now.
Cool. Thanks, Tony. And I'll get into those, but let's just touch on the coverage quickly. So when we set out to build GlobalBlock, we didn't want this just to be another new TLD blocking service. I recognize that some people may see value in those, others may not. We knew that for this to be effective, we needed to touch all different types of TLDs. So within GlobalBlock, we include the legacy GTLDs. Unfortunately, not CommonNet, but the other Kenobi TLDs to begin with. We also have pretty much the whole new GTLD market, and including CCTLDs as well. So many brands will look for, as you all know, registering their term in specific markets that that are important to them, but also having coverage outside of that as well. So we've included many CCTLDs, and we'll continue to grow that amount well past launch. We won't sit on the TLD list as a static thing once we've launched. We're still continuing to grow the amount of TLDs that we add to this. We also recognize that there are emerging pieces of tech that are interesting for brands, or areas of concern where maybe it's not understood, or maybe a brand is experimenting in those areas. So we're very happy to also include Web3 extensions, starting out with the Unstoppable portfolio, which many of you will know, and well beyond what's just available at Unstoppable Domains, but including other Web3 extensions that they operate as well. So we'll continue to grow this with our partners. We'll look for new partners. We'll continue to talk to CCTLDs and governments about including their sovereign TLDs. That's a longer discussion with some, but we'll continue to push that as we want to continue to add more extensions through the lifetime of this product. In terms of some of the features, I think we're really proud of this feature, and everyone on the call, I hope will like it. One of the issues with blocking is when names are already taken, whether they be by your own company or more importantly, by a third party. So the priority auto catch service, what it allows you to do is purchase a global block, and if you have a domain registration that will be included in that block, you can just let it lapse, or you can decide to delete it. And because of the GlobalBlock technology that sits underneath each and every registry that's participating, the name that is released will automatically be caught and added to your GlobalBlock protection. So it will never see the light of day. It will never be available to a third party. And similarly, for domains that are held by third parties, you can actually allow you can sit back and allow GlobalBlock to sort of work on your behalf in the background. And if that third party who's registered a name that matches your rights decides not to renew it, or fails to renew it, priority auto catch will catch that name at the end of that specific registry's grace period. So it will never become available. It will never be caught by any kind of drop catching service. This takes priority underneath inside the registry, and the name automatically gets applied to your block account if and when we catch one of those names. And as Tony said, much of the no one knows what's going to happen in the future, and whether or not your brand has decided that it really needs that .horse name. So if you wanted your brand .horse and you wanted to use it in the future, you could unblock it from your block and use it however you see fit. And because of the priority auto catch service behind, you'll be able to release it again once you've used it, and it will be applied back into your block. So you're able to unblock names at the current registry rate. So there's no fee on top for converting from block to unblock and back again. You'll just need to pay the registration fee for the domain. But you can use these anytime you want. So it gives you the flexibility to future-proof the use of specific TLDs for your brand. And then finally, Tony showed you on the GlobalBlock website where you can go and calculate what the type of coverage you would get from GlobalBlock looks like. But I know that everyone will want to see more details than just those raw numbers. So through Markmonitor, you're able to order a preliminary report. And what preliminary reports do is they take your brand and they take the main labels that we've generated, and we build a report that shows you exactly what you will get from a GlobalBlock order. So you'll be able to see what names are available to block, but more importantly, the names that aren't available to block and the reasons why. So it might be that they're registered, it may be that they're reserved or prevented from registration due to some policy, either through ICANN or locally as well. So the preliminary reports give you a view into what you will get when you place your GlobalBlock order. Now, these are built not using publicly available data. These are using specific reports that registries submit to us every day. So this is the most up-to-date information about what's going on inside each and every registry. And so you'll get a pretty good idea very quickly of what kind of coverage you're going to get. Now, once you've placed your order, then we create dynamic order reports. And because GlobalBlock is a living and breathing product, because of priority auto catch and the unblocking services, it doesn't rest. So whenever we catch a domain or you decide to unblock a domain, those reports will update and you'll get a notification of that. And then you'll be able to look at your updated order reports. And the same applies if a TLD introduces a new language or liberalizes any of their reserve lists, because we'll catch those names and the block automatically takes effect. We'll update those reports for you. When we add new TLDs, it will do exactly the same as well. And there are some TLDs that are joining GlobalBlock that are yet to launch and will do this year. So this will give you the ability to block without having to participate in any kind of grandfathering or sunrise.
So these are really important points, and I think we'll just take a moment to sort of let all of that sink in. Some really what we think to be killer features here. And as Ben mentioned, as we add new extensions to GlobalBlock for existing customers, those extensions are added to your blocked account at no charge. Okay, so we will continue to expand GlobalBlock. I mentioned before that we'll be launching in just over 10 days time with approximately 600 web extensions. We're very confident that that number will get to about 700 by the end of this year, and we're going to continue to evolve that. And as you can imagine, there's a lot of discussion for those that are interested in the next round of TLDs with ICANN, likely in 2026. So as they start to become available on the internet, we're going to have some of those preventative measures. So the Brand Safety Alliance and what we're building here with GlobalBlock is really designed with the customer in mind to give you flexibility, but also predictability as new extensions and different features and language tables and things like that are added to the internet. Your brand will be protected automatically for those of you that are existing customers. Shane touched earlier on our eligibility types. We do have the 4 criteria here that you can see on the screen. The most important part of that from our perspective is the verification of those rights. If you are not a blocking a customer that has experienced a blocking service before, you'll be asked by Markmonitor to provide some documentation to support your request. We're very, very considerate and also careful as to ensuring that the blocking is provided only to legitimate rights owners. However, if you are an adult block or a DPML or MPML from an existing service from a while back, or one of the original .XXX Sunrise B registrations that Shane referred to in the opening slides of the blocking evolution. If you are one of those 4 customers, you do not need to have your rights verified. We have you in our databases, and we'll be able to, and you'll be able to submit orders for GlobalBlock through Markmonitor without having your legal rights verified one more time. On to the final parts of the presentation, folks. Thank you for your attention so far. The GlobalBlock Founders Program will commence on March the 1st, so only a few days from now, and run for a 3-month period where we will be providing a 10% discount on any GlobalBlock orders. And that includes GlobalBlock and GlobalBlock Plus, And for those of you that would like to participate with a registration beyond 1 year, which we're going to talk about that in just a moment, but if you'd like to do that, that discount will apply to all of those years. And the reason we wanted to share that with you is that, as I mentioned to you in the previous slide, the coverage of GlobalBlock is going to increase. And with that will come an increase in the wholesale price. It won't be incremental. It'll typically be once a year or twice a year that will give the price a little bit of a bump as we add more coverage and more protection. If you wish to purchase a 3-year GlobalBlock in advance, and in particular, if you can take advantage of that 10% discount, you'll be able to shield yourself from those price increases. So to be 100% clear, those price increases do not apply to existing registrants. They are only on renewals. So we'll continue to protect you and expand your coverage. And we've seen a really strong uptick from a lot of organisations wishing to take advantage of that opportunity and that price protection by taking a 3-year GlobalBlock or GlobalBlock Plus at their first purchase. We've talked here a little bit about DPML. Many of you will have DPML coverage, and as to be also completely clear in the way that this works, the DPML extensions are included in GlobalBlock. So if you have a DPML service and your DPML expires in the next 12 months, you're able to purchase a GlobalBlock. You could take advantage of that discount that I just mentioned now and get the additional coverage that GlobalBlock provides you and access to some of those new features. And of course, you could then delete your DPML as it approaches its expiry and trust that the service will automatically capture your existing coverage. So that's a great feature for those who have an expiring DPML within the next 12 months. If you do not, and you have a multi-year DPML that expires beyond the 12-month window, we will have a delta or a bridging service that's available for you. Effectively, you'll be able to get protection in the non-DPML extensions that are included in GlobalBlock at a discounted price to effectively, ensure that you're only paying for the additional coverage. So both of these services are available as of March 1. If you are a DPML customer and you'd like to explore these opportunities with Markmonitor, I'd suggest you reach out to your representative. Just to give you an idea in the coverage there for those that are interested, DPML does have just over 300 extensions that are available, where GlobalBlock will have 600 out of the gate, and as I've said to you, we're going to expand that more. You'll notice a very significant difference in the CCTLD coverage. You'll also notice that we have Web3 available and a number of the other features that we've talked about before. So for those of you that are interested, there is a few little nuances that your Markmonitor reps will need to work through with you, but we want it to be really respectful, and we're very grateful for Identity Digital and the DPML participation in GlobalBlock. And we wanted to make sure that as Ben mentioned before, that we weren't requiring customers to have multiple different blocking services. There's a path there for each and every one of you to be able to move across to your GlobalBlock service. And finally from us, we've talked a little bit about expanding GlobalBlock. We've got a very significant roadmap for the Brand Safety Alliance that exists. Number one, in GlobalBlock, where we will continue to expand on the coverage. We will add more extensions. We've got many of them sitting there waiting for us right now that just weren't quite ready for us to launch on the 1st of March. And as I already mentioned, we'll have an next round of TLDs with ICANN to contend with in the next year or two. Beyond that, the Brand Safety Alliance will continue to engage with the community. And for those of you that are interested, perhaps you may wish to meet with us at the INTA conference in Atlanta in May this year, or indeed feel free to get in touch with us via the GlobalBlock or Brand Safety Alliance websites. We really value the ideas of working with our community and working with brand owners. We have many other products that we'll be looking to launch over the course of the next 3 or 4 years within the Brand Safety Alliance. But of course, we're always open for feedback and an ability to collaborate and share and understand really what makes a difference to brand owners. And hopefully what you've heard today from GlobalBlock is exactly one of those things, something that will make your life easier, save your organization a little bit of money, and give you some flexibility and predictability that you haven't previously had. I think with that, that's all that we've got, and we're going to pass back over to Shane. Thanks very much, everybody.
Wonderful. Thanks, Tony. Thanks, Ben. Again, appreciate it. Tony, I know it's very early for you, so appreciate you being here. We do have a flood of questions that came in, so I'll read them out loud, and then I'll let you guys pass the baton on who wants to answer what. So the first question, does this offer protection of our registered domains, or is it only focused on the lookalike domains that are not registered?
All right, Ben, you want to go first?
Sure, why not? So, yep, you can, let's say your company name is Acme and you have Acme registrations across 250 of the TLDs that will be covered. The block will sit in the background. So this is exact match registrations as well as any variants. So there may be some of those names within your registered domain portfolio that you've decided you no longer want to have, and you have your global block in place. So you can just retire those registrations and they'll join your block. And so there's no need to continue to maintain them or worry about name servers or whether or not it's something you want to use now or in the future. So GlobalBlock will cover exact match as well in the plus service, the variants of that trademark label.
Great, thanks, Ben. The next one's more of a comment. It's just saying, my focus is around email, so I always want a DMARC record published on all defensively registered domains to minimize hijacking of email for those domains. Again, that doesn't really work as well with block domains. Those would have to actually be live registered, or I guess not live domains, but registered domains. Next question, we'll move on. Are you actually blocking registration of a particular brand name on a TLD, or are you reserving or registering that brand? Two-part question. What happens if one brand blocks a registration and another legitimate brand wants it?
Okay. So yeah, there's a bit to unpack there. So let's do it in reverse. If a brand owner is an existing owner of a global block and another legitimate brand wishes to purchase the name, to buy the name and then realizes that it's been blocked, assuming that both of them are legitimate rights owners, I guess that falls into the first come first serve model as we would have right now in domain purchase. If it is that you feel that you are a legitimate rights owner and the owner of the global block is not, we have a dispute mechanism available on the Global Block website to be able to handle that. Remind me about the first part, Shane. I think I've my time.
Yeah, the first part is, are you actually blocking registration of a particular brand name on a TLD, or are you reserving / registering that brand name, which I'd take to be similar to the T-Rex product where there was a registration track and a reserve track rather than it actually being blocked at the registry level.
Thank you, appreciate it. So these are not registered domains. They do appear in Whois. So if you find a domain, then you'll be able to see that it's, it'll say that it's blocked via the Global Block service, but they're not registered domains. We don't use the reserve list in the registries as such. We actually have a different technology that we work within our registry partners as blocking, and that's necessary to deliver some of those things that we talked to you before about in terms of the priority auto catch service. So no, they're not registered domains. They are kind of reserve names, but using a slightly different technology to do that. They're not on the traditional reserve list that a registry would operate.
Yeah, I think I would probably add to that, to the question, this is sort of blocking in the true sense of the word. The functionality that Tony mentioned, we've created objects inside registries that are blocked objects. And this allows us to publish Whois information. So any blockee, owner of a global block, order can verify that that block is in place.
I guess we should also add to that it doesn't include the registrant details. So it's, whilst you can check the name's blocked, you can't work out by whom, for those of you that have purchased a global block already.
I think while the juices are flowing on kind of the blocking and reserving, I'm going to jump ahead to another question. Can we get alerts for attempted domain registrations that were blocked by GlobalBlock? Example being third-party attempted to register brand.tld but was blocked by the blocking service. Guessing sort of a reporting type thing or an email notification.
So right now, that's not part of the current service, but we know from operating adult block that this is a often requested feature. It's something that we're looking at for a future iteration of GlobalBlock. We have hundreds of different registry operators, all maintaining these things, using different technology and different code. So we anticipate that once GlobalBlock is settled and all of the registry participants feel comfortable with it operating, we'll then look at the next technology layer to bring additional benefit to registrants of the service.
Yeah, that's great. I think adding that service in the future would be hugely beneficial for brand owners, especially just so they know what's going on with their brand names. We'll move on because we have a bunch of questions. I hope you guys are okay with that. So the next question is, when will other Web3 services be included for blocking, Handshake, ENS, etc.?
So great question. We're going to explore all of those throughout the rest of this year. There are some that make a lot of sense, some of those you've just referred to. So we will add more extensions in general, including Web3 most likely by the end of this year. The specifics around that are yet to be finalized.
Great, thanks, Tony. Moving on, is the AutoCatch service via Plus or Standard?
You get it in both services. So all of the features that we've spoken about are you get with both services. So it's really down to you about what kind of level of protection you want and what's important to you in terms of the names that you block. But the priority auto catch and the unblocking is available to every registrant irrespective of product type.
Great, thanks, Ben. This next question I can answer. Basically, it's stating if you block a name set, name, and misspellings, you have to unblock to use the name again. That's correct. If you already have a live registered domain that you're using or have plans to use, it goes into that priority auto catch if you decide not to renew it and let it lapse. However, if you want to use it again in the future, you do have to unblock it at the registry level. But if it's live right now, it doesn't automatically go into blocked. It's up to the registrant or brand owner to decide if they want to keep the name or let it lapse. We'll move on to the next question is, what is the cost of the DPML bridge service? Our service runs through 2028. I will take that one offline and we'll have a conversation with that. Whomever has asked this question, if you don't mind reaching out to your domain portfolio advisor, we can have a conversation on the cost to bridge or to upgrade to the GlobalBlock. Next question, will the GlobalBlock include the adult block extensions?
So
that's a good question. Sorry, over to you, Ben.
Sorry. No, I can let you take it.
I thought it was my turn. Sorry, bud. Okay, so the short answer to that is no. Adult block is not included in GlobalBlock at this point in time. A few reasons for that. One is a technical element of it. The broader commercial component of that is that there are a number of brands that have told us in the past that they did not want to participate in adult block because of the nature of the strings, and we didn't want that to necessarily conflict with GlobalBlock. So in the future, we may look to roll that in. For now, they are separate services and will remain as such for the foreseeable future.
Great, thank you, Tony. Next one, what if someone already registered a GlobalBlock on the same name you are going to block? I'm guessing that's around, similar trademarks or same matching trademarks.
Cool, so I'll take this, so I get the difficult one. Well, it's not that difficult actually. We allow multiple GlobalBlocks for the same label. And the reason for that is the one brand may opt for a 1-year standard service, another may opt for a 3-year plus service, and you don't want to be reliant on someone else for your own brand protection. So we allow both parties to purchase a GlobalBlock. Now, the follow-on question to that would be, well, what happens if I want to unblock a name for my own use that's available? Well, there's a mechanism between the two parties to allow them to agree to unblock a name. And if they're unable to do that, then we have a sort of a last resort dispute policy. But we expect that brands that operate in different areas will be able to determine which names they're happy to release to someone else if it's always been available.
Great, thanks, Ben. Moving on, the next question is, when you say variants, what do you mean? Tony, I don't know if you want to jump back to the slide where you kind of outlined some of those variants and talk through that one more time.
Okay, so we have built a proprietary algorithm that looks at the label of the brand and then generates lookalike domains using homoglyph confusable characters. Okay, so effectively we're talking here about turning non-Latin characters that would be visually similar to Latin characters and therefore able to be used in scamming or spoofing attempts. So that coverage is then applied. Once we determine the list of variants, you can see here in my example, if we typed in GlobalBlock, the system generates 191 different variations of that label. And we then apply that 191 variations across every single extension in GlobalBlock, assuming that, or on the basis that that domain is not registered and that the registry itself supports the labels. Sorry, it supports the character scripts. So if we do have a certain scenario where a TLD is basically only ASCII or only Latin, then we wouldn't be able to block. We're aiming to block where a domain could be registered. We're not necessarily doing that in a space where the language table is not supported. But as Ben mentioned earlier, if the registry adds a new language table, they'll need to tell us in advance, and any blocking that exists would be then automatically included for the brand owner. So this is just an extension of your brand and all of the different types of confusable characters that we can have. Now, there are options beyond this. This is focused on homoglyph confusables, but hopefully that answers the question in terms of how we generate variants.
Yeah, I think that answers it well. And for whoever asked the question, again, please reach out to your domain portfolio advisor, and we're happy to set up some time to go over variants more in detail with you. And if you want more examples, we can work up something with your trademark, your brand name, whatever. Moving on, would this work for a variation that may include an additional characters such as Acme with an extra e.com for a company called Acme, ACME? So just adding in that additional character to the end of the trademark.
So the variants that we generate are based around a standard, and where we wanted to start for GlobalBlock is the exact match. So as Tony said, there are other typo error libraries available. We do actually use those and have deployed those in other services, but for GlobalBlock, simply because of the scale of this, we've decided to start with exact match only. So duplicate characters is not a typo error that we currently cover. So in the case of Acme with an additional E at the end, that wouldn't be covered.
Right, thanks, Ben. Couple more questions before I let you guys go, get on with your lives. What is the level of proof needed to register a company name that is not a registered trademark? I know it's covered in one of the slides previously. Tony, if you want to skip back to some of the verification types.
Ben, I might let you take that if you don't mind.
Sure, absolutely. So in terms of eligibility and the verification, we use an independent third-party verification agent for all of this, who are very well versed in verification of rights and companies. For a company name or an organization name, we would require a certificate of incorporation or an excerpt from the Companies House for the UK, or I'm not sure what the US alternative is, but we would need an extract from that registration database showing the company is registered, and then through the verification process, the third party would just take some sort of know your customer steps in order to approve that label for for use with GlobalBlock. And with the company names, we'll remove the suffix. So in the case of Acme Inc., you would be able to apply for Acme as the company name and therefore the label to protect.
Awesome, thanks, Ben. I think in the past with AdOblock, we submitted a wine label for a client or something, like a screenshot or a picture that they sent of a wine label that was proof of use or something. So yeah, awesome. So there is a couple more questions, some that we've already kind of gone over. And again, for the audience, if you have any questions that haven't been answered yet, please reach out to your domain portfolio advisor and we'll try to answer those as best we can. The last question I think we'll get to is kind of an interesting one. I don't know how much Ben and Tony are allowed to say or what you want to say, but it is interesting. What was, or have you received pushback from some registries? What was the conversation type like? Specifically, you know, some legacy GTLDs and some common CCTLDs like .co and .mx.
Yeah, well, that's a deep answer and kind of a mirror into the last 2 years of our life. I can give you the snapshot. We've got a number of folks who have obviously participated. We've got a number of folks who have said to us, we will see how this goes and then we will join. That would be common of a few legacy TLDs. It would also be common in particular of CCTLDs. And that's not completely surprising, you know, from our perspective. Strangely enough, Shane, the last 2 weeks, as we've been sort of doing a little bit more of this promotion and rolling out GlobalBlock, there's been a number of those CCTLDs who come back to us and said, hey, is it too late to participate? And sadly, the answer is yes. But and we'll roll them in as part of the next part. There are a few other organisations that have declined to participate. Their reasons for that, I think, are varied. Sometimes it's philosophical. You know, you shouldn't be blocking in my TLD or my extension. Sometimes it's commercial. We will continue to work with every registry on the planet, and we accept that, you know, GlobalBlock might not be for everyone. But as the Brand Safety Alliance continues and we reinforce that we're here to help brand owners in more than just one way, and we're going to continue to roll out multiple products and services that can add value to brand owners. We're hopeful that they'll change their mind and come and join us, and reinforce from our perspective that we're here to help brand owners to optimize not just their portfolio, but optimize their protection. You know, we do see this in a world where we imagine that brand owners will have a portfolio of domain names that they use, and a blocking portfolio that protects everything else that they might not have had the budget to be able to do, or the time to be able to do, or they're looking for ways to make their life a little bit easier. So as we continue to roll out that philosophy and add more extensions over time, I'm confident we're going to get a very significant, you know, if not all of the extensions to join us at some point. But it's a great question. You know, this is not for everybody, and I think we'll just have to get them over time.
Totally. Yeah, I totally agree. I think you touched on the point being, you know, some are waiting and seeing how this works, and I think that probably is the sentiment that's felt by some CCTLDs for sure, that, you know, it's a big risk to be involved in something like this, and so they want to see how it goes. So yeah, I agree with you with everything that was stated about, you know, this expanding in the future and the growth, and frankly, I'm excited to see where you guys end up. All right, with that, we will wrap this up. Thank you to everybody who attended live. Again, the recording will be delivered in a week's time. So a week from today, the recording will go to the email address used for registration. I'd like to say thank you one last time to Ben and Tony for particularly working outside of their normal working hours and being our guests here today. It was wonderful having you guys, and we're excited about the future of GlobalBlock.
Thanks, Shane.
Thanks very much.